A couple of weeks ago, I ended my 365 posters in 365 days challenge for a few reasons. One of the main ones being that I wasn't spending enough time with my wife or fur baby Tootsie. But another is that I felt like I lost the point of this challenge in the first place, which was to create and to grow and to ultimately learn more about myself through my art. Instead, I got caught up in the numbers, the followers, the likes, the anxiety-ridden bubble of Instagram, as I like to call it. But I'm getting ahead of myself here, and I promise that we'll touch on all of that later. First and foremost, I lied to you guys. Right from the title of this video, I actually made 314 posters in 314 days. But 300 is a cleaner number, and it also sounds better in the video title. And since I'm trying to do better on YouTube, I am going to go with the cleaner title rather than the other title, so don't hate me, okay? With that being said, I've had the team hard at work analyzing all 314 posters, and I wanted to break down the whole process as well as share a few things that I learned along the way. In order to do this effectively though, I wanted to break this down into a few different categories or chapters. So here we have the great historical timeline of Willyum Designs, starting all the way back to my birth and stretching to present day. At this point, I can already hear you whining and crying, asking me, oh, but Willyum, why do we need to see all this stuff? I just care about the 3D posters. And to that, I say, maybe I want to give a little bit of context as to who I am and why I am the way that I am and why this challenge even started in the first place. I'm also feeling nostalgic, so you get to come along for the ride. So it all began on July 26th, 2000, when a little boy was born in the depths of Alabama. And really, as far back as I can remember, I was quite a creative little boy indeed. I think a lot of it stemmed from my love for Legos, really. Mainly my love for Bionicles and Power Miners as a young lad. Just look at these. I would literally lose my mind over these things. I actually have one of these little guys on my desk at work that stares at me while I talk to clients all day. But I also could not get enough of drawing. That love continued throughout my life, especially in high school. And yeah, none of these are masterpieces, but hey, they all mean something to me, and I think that's what art is all about anyways. I then dipped the old toes into photography, which aligns to my fedora wearing days, which we don't ever talk about except for here. This is quite the fit. I did make a couple of Instagram accounts during this time to share my epic shots as seen here, and even got into YouTube at one point as a vlogger. Don't go looking for that though. Those are long gone, or I sure hope they are. I was like 14, okay? Also, I did want to point out that a lot more happened during these years. I'm just pointing out the highlights here, and I also don't have all day to talk about my cringy years. I don't like doing it in the first place, so we're moving on. Then finally, in April of 2022, I created Willyumdesigns as a film photography account. I know, baffling, isn't it? Some of these shots still hit though, and I still have a love for my Mamiya RZ67. I promise I will use you one day soon, baby girl. But throughout all of this, I was extremely unsatisfied, and I think a lot of it stemmed from me not being able to find the exact medium that I liked, the style that I liked, or what my art even meant in the first place. And I think that's why I have so many chapters throughout my life of design, both with the photography, with the drawing, with the 3D art now, is because I was just trying to find myself through my art. But I think that's the beauty about all of this, is that it really isn't about the destination, but about the journey that we take with art. It's literally about all of those home store signs, isn't it? And here we are, just about a year ago, the start of the 365-day challenge. Looking back on the 314 days that I made it into this challenge, I feel that I can break my progression down into 5 main eras. My Elliot is a cool guy era. Shout out Elliot for the inspiration for literally all of these. My Blender cartoon era. My realistic medieval era, the yearbook and hyper-realistic era, and the now era, for a lack of a better name. I find this all really interesting because if I were to take one poster from each era and kind of set them side by side, they all look and feel completely different. But at the same time, it still looks and feels like my art, like it's still made by me. One thing's for sure, I kept with that primary color scheme, didn't I? Gotta love the red and yellow. But now that you know just about everything about little old me, I wanted to break the 300 down into a few manageable categories to talk about in more detail. Out of the 300 posters, 5 were the most popular among my tiny little baby audience. At first, I was curious as to why these did better than others, but when it came down to it, I think these were created out of pure love for art. Most of these I remember making on a whim, without thinking too much or trying too hard to make something that people would like. And honestly, I think people see that. They see through the mess of seeking fame or scrounging around like a little goblin for likes, but one of these definitely gained a lot more traction than others. And honestly, I think this is one of my best in terms of overall composition. Fun fact, this was also the first time that I used a little PNG in conjunction with my 3D art, as seen through the little blood splatter over here. I just found a blood splatter PNG on Adobe Stock, plugged that PNG into Blender, and now we got a little blood smear thing. It adds to the story, you know? Believe it or not, I did have some flops along the way. So here are the 5 small hitters. Out of all of these, I'm going with this as my biggest flop. It's not the worst poster in the world, but I think an audience can tell when a creator is feeling unmotivated, tired, and even anxious. And I was definitely feeling unmotivated, tired, and anxious this day. I did make it in an airport though, so cut me a little bit of slack. I often get in a pretty unhealthy pattern of comparison, especially when it comes to art. And I think social media is a big root of that contempt. That's part of the reason why, like I mentioned earlier, I stopped this challenge in the first place. I was feeling burdened and heavy making art every single day rather than uplifted and inspired like I used to feel when I would make these posters every single day. And that's not me saying that I hate social media. I am not a boomer, and I will forever be thankful to Instagram for bringing me friends from around the world that not only push me to be a better person, but also to create better art. That being said, I do want to be careful talking about bad art, even if these are my least favorites. Because again, I firmly believe that all of these posters are a key component of my journey. Just cue the thing. Here are my least favorites. Out of these 5, this one is probably my least favorite of all, Day 60. When it comes down to it, this isn't a bad poster. I just don't like it. I barely knew Blender at the time. I mean, you can see here, it's just a bunch of spheres kind of thrown together, and I would also not know how to edit the textures, so I would just draw my little mustache face character on in post. But again, this is still important in my journey, and if I were to tell myself then that I would be making stuff like this now, I would have probably been like, oh, no way, or something like that, probably. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, it's the moment you might have been waiting for if you are still watching the video and waiting for this particular moment. My favorite posters from the 314-day challenge that I completed. I wanted to treat this as a true top 5 because a lot of the details that these posters offer are definitely more interesting than my least favorites. And since they are my favorites, I'm gonna have more to say than my least favorite posters, you know? So that being said, coming in at number 5. To this day, this poster makes me so happy. I remember being pumped and excited that I could make realistic things in Blender like fruit and cups and a table, and then being able to transform that in some kind of cartoon fun way It was just too fun to make, and it was one of the first posters too where I added texture at the end. If we enhance here, you can see the little grainy texture that I've added in almost all of my posters now. This was the catalyst for that, which is really cool to see. And it was just fun to be able to transform a really clean 3D render into something that looks like it came out of a magazine. Also, make sure to let your homies know how laborious their fruit looks today, because it's a good reminder. This poster specifically is pretty close to my heart because it's one of the first person-like models that I made in 3D. As you can see here, I even added little hands to this guy, which at the time was quite the challenge. I remember this taking a long time to do, and just to be able to see the growth that has come from him to the posters that I make now is pretty incredible, and I will forever be thankful for this little dude. It's one of the first posters too where I added depth in the foreground and in the background, both with the bokeh and the camera in Blender, and then also with the trees that I added as well. So that again there's just a lot of things that were the catalyst for the work that I will make in the future, and will forever love this poster. Is this poster super uncanny? Yes, but I am honestly so proud of this realistic Luigi here. It was quite the challenge. This was during the phase of my super hyper realistic 3D models where I would try to replicate a skin texture, replicate hair, replicate eyes even, and it led to some pretty weird results, but I think this was the best version of that uncanny look that I was kind of going for. This was also one of the first times where I added this like really short stubble look with the mustache as well, and I'm super proud of how it came out. I mean, it looks like a little beard and mustache here. And if you want to know further on how I made this guy, you'll have to wait for next video when we may or may not be making a realistic Mario together. So you didn't hear it from me. Didn't hear it from me. I think this poster here is probably the best representation of the style that I found throughout this whole challenge. I mean, as we have talked about throughout this video, it has taken a long time and hundreds, literally hundreds of posters for me to find a unique style that I also love. It's, again, easy for me to cater to an audience and cater to what people may like, but for me, this style here is the style that brings me the most joy to make. And I am so excited to look back on this poster in the future and build off of it, look for a new style, look for new ways that I can improve with the modeling, with the layout, with the composition. Just absolutely love this one. And here it is, my favorite poster from the challenge. And honestly, I could argue that any of these posters in the top 5 list could be in this #1 spot. But this one specifically, I just love how it came out. I think the colors are so unique to everything else that I did. The layout itself is really strong, and I have tried to replicate the style with the blurry foregrounds, with the different heat map colors as well, and I can't. So if you can help me figure out how this happened, that would be awesome. I think it was some weird blending mode gradient map thing that I did in Photoshop, and again, I have tried to replicate it, but I just can't seem to make it happen. And that just makes this poster here so unique to me because it was the perfect storm of just random events that happened in the graphic design journey to make this poster happen. But there it is, #1. And here we are at the end of another Willyum Designs video. I know, don't cry too hard. I have more videos coming up, more things planned that I'm excited to continue to share with each of you. But I wanted to take this time just to say thank you to those that supported me during the 365-day challenge and are now supporting me in this YouTube adventure. It truly means so much to me, and the support that you guys have already shown to me is immense and so overwhelming and just incredible for me to see that people actually care about the things that I'm talking about. It's super weird. But again, just thank you so much, and I hope that through this video and through my other videos that I can help inspire you just to continue to create. Because again, all art is important, and all art during your journey is also important. With that being said, I think we should cue that little sign up one more time. Don't you think? I think so.